people ask me about my experience kind of moving abroad, moving from America to Europe. Specifically, I moved to Berlin and relocated here with my husband, and a lot of people have been asking us about our experience, about kind of what that whole process was like. There are just a lot of people who really have this desire to, at some point in their lives, move to another city abroad. For us, this entire process has been several years in the making, and we've really learned a lot. Thinking about making this vlog post, there was really no way that I could fit everything that I could say about this in one single episode. This episode specifically is about going from like dreaming to thinking to doing, and just that first step of actually, going from talking about doing something to actually doing it. I think a lot of people that, especially that we've talked to, they stay in the dreaming about it for a really long time. And for us, we probably spent a really good portion of our 20s just kind of dreaming about it and not like realizing that, hey, that's actually possible for you to do. If this is something that you're really passionate about in your life and that you really want to do, you should know that it's going to be probably difficult to do, but once you get there and once you actually do it, that it is really a rewarding experience. And so far I can only say like positive things about kind of starting to go down that road, as difficult as it has been. I think that thinking about the practical decisions that are involved and actually like making that happen and starting to think through those things in relation to your own life, those are, the first steps that I think are really, some of the most important things. Basically, in 2006, my husband Andrew and I, we studied abroad in Europe. During that time, we got to travel to every single country in the EU, a lot of major cities, and we really were able to, during that time, really get a feel for, kind of culturally what each place was like. And that kind of, in our later 20s, when we started traveling again, it kind of directed like where we were interested in traveling to. I think that if you have the opportunity to study abroad or travel and you're thinking about doing something like this in your life, that I would encourage you to travel as much as possible and go to as many cities as possible. One of the things that when you go to start to really think about making a move like this is culturally the place and the people and the kind of lifestyle, like that should kind of fit your vibe as a person. And that is probably one of, if not, in my opinion, the most important things to consider is like, how do you feel about the place? How do you feel about the people? How do you feel about the language barrier? And how do you feel yourself about learning that as well? You should expect to learn the language. I think I'm kind of early into German. It's really difficult, but like actually learning that and trying, it is difficult and you feel silly for a long time, and I don't think that really goes away until you're fluent, but it's a really cool part about acclimating with the culture. So I would say that finding a city is probably, one of the first steps is like really thinking that through. I will tell you that we watched a lot of travel TV shows in the process of doing this. All of the Rick Steves, we watched Anthony Bourdain, Andrew Zimmern, House Hunters International, that is huge. Basically, if there was a travel show related to one of the countries in Europe, like we were all over that, we were watching it, we were YouTubing it, you name it, like we watched it. I kind of didn't really expect Berlin until we had traveled here. I think the third time that we had actually came to Berlin was the time that we actually realized that, hey, this is a city that really fits who we are as people and at this phase in our life, and that was something that started us down this road in Germany and Berlin in general. So basically we studied abroad in 2006, always talked about doing that, and then our later 20s we did some more traveling again, and would be sitting in our Airbnb thinking like, oh, this will be really cool if this could be our everyday for a while. And then when we hit 30, I think that was like the point in our life when we were like, okay, we don't have kids, we've always wanted to do this. If we want to do this at some point in our life, like now is the time that we should do this. You should do it while you have the time, because you just never know when that window of time is something else is going to present itself, and it might be a little bit more difficult for you to do. The next first practical steps for us was kind of like minimizing our life. We actually went from owning a really large house in the suburbs to renting a smaller house, to renting an even smaller house, to kind of like living with family while we kind of made this transition. That involved us like decreasing the amount of things that we had and the things that we owned. Living at each place and the amount of things that we had. I mean, that was just one of the first practical decisions, was like, how much stuff can you actually have in like a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment? Actually, realistically, how much stuff are you going to be bringing with you? I will tell you that we basically sold almost everything that we own, like all of our furniture. We were thinking, okay, well, the things that we do want to hold on to, that's going to go in storage. So like, how much stuff do we want to own? And really, the things that we decided to keep have a large significance for us. And I think that process of minimizing like really showed us, and was a really big learning process of like what is actually important in our life, like physical items, like what is important. Basically, when we moved over here, we didn't take any furniture or anything with us. Some people that we know have done that, and it is quite expensive. So basically, everything that we moved with was all in suitcases when we moved. And you just have to think about like, what are the most important things that I'm actually going to need in the place that you're going to. You know, they can get all that stuff when you get there. And also just living in a smaller space in general. That was another factor, is like living in a smaller space surrounded by a lot of other people. Kind of a large change, so just, you know, consider how that makes you feel. Then I think the next big factor that kind of helps you decide, or like almost decides for you, like what city you should actually live in, is how are you going to support yourself? And I think this was probably where we hit the most roadblocks. You know, one of the first cities that we actually considered was Paris, and then kind of as we started to think about like, okay, you know, culturally, like how do we don't speak fluent French, so culturally, how would we kind of acclimate into this different culture? And honestly, like, Parisians kind of have a distaste for Americans. I mean, that's just kind of what we experienced traveling there. And then we kind of decided that, you know, maybe that's not the best fit for us. We love visiting there, but, you know, maybe that's not the best like kind of living situation for us. So then we started thinking about London, and like London, like nothing worked out. And so that kind of told us both that, you know, it probably isn't the right fit for us. Germany kind of started to present some open doors, and so we started to travel down that path. It took a little while to work out all the details. I think that we kept like a positive attitude about everything, and things ended up working out. So I will make episodes probably about going into more depth about these topics, but for now I'm just kind of like broad overview. I will say that even though I am specifically moving to Berlin in Germany, that I think my advice and our advice like really pertains to like any city in the EU that you might be thinking about moving to, like just the decisions that have to be made, the whole process. I would say that there's like application for like anywhere that you want to move to. And my kind of like last tip for this segment is like to be flexible, to be patient, especially because there's a lot of unknowns in doing something like this. There are a lot of variables that you're not going to know right off the bat. They do take time to figure out. They are a little bit more easily answered if you are in a place, or if you do know somebody in that city. It is made a little bit easier. And if you do have a job offer, that does make your life a lot easier. Yeah, just know that being flexible and being patient throughout the whole process is really gonna like serve you well going down that route. I think that's all I'm gonna include in this episode, so thank you for watching. Like I said, I'll be doing some more videos related to this, so if you like this and it's kind of long time after the fact, I'll link those videos below. But subscribe, because this will probably be like an ongoing project of like just sharing tips and advice and kind of travel related things. So subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next episode.